Hi, I'm Claus and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about bow hunting and a site from Garmin called Xero. And to help me out, I got a visit from Claus from Garmin. Welcome, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
He's an avid bow hunter. I haven't done any bow hunting, but I've been hunting with the rifle and the shotgun. So Claus will tell me everything about the bow hunting and the new site they have. So how is it about bow hunting? How do I become a bow hunter?
Yeah, so I would say in a Danish context, the very first thing you need to have is an ordinary hunter's license, which is in bow hunting context, this is the big chunk of work, the big effort. So when you have your ordinary hunter's license, you would need to take one additional training day and pass a theoretical exam and a shooting test. That is not very much. One day, of course, answer 20 questions and shoot 6 arrows.
Okay.
That is again a little effort compared to the ordinary hunter's license.
How many arrows are you allowed to have in the tests?
So for the shooting test, when you have to pass that, you're shooting 6 arrows on distances between, I believe, 5 and 20 something meters.
Okay.
And you're allowed to miss one.
Okay. And
the target is at the size of, a plate.
Yeah.
So it's not horribly difficult from a bow shooting perspective.
Okay. And so the difference between rifle hunting and bow hunting, I've seen bow hunters going out, and I know they have to be really close to the animal compared to the rifle.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that's more different or more difficult or easier?
Yeah. So I will say we have to distinguish between traditional bows, like the long bow and the recurve bow, and then I would say the modern bow, which is a compound bow.
Yeah.
The traditional bows, I would say those are really difficult to shoot. It takes a lot of practice to be just reasonably shooting with those guys. Yeah. A modern compound bow with sights and everything and stabilizers is, I would say, as easy to shoot as a rifle.
Okay.
I mean, you're basically aiming at the target. You got a release and all of that. So the difficult part about bow hunting is not shooting the bow, as long as we're talking about compound bows. The difficult part is exactly what you're getting at here. It's getting close to the game. Yeah. That's what's difficult.
Okay. Cool. So can you show me how to operate a compound bow?
Yeah. So on the compound bow here, see if we can get in front of the camera. You have a hand section where you place if you're a right-hand shooter, you place your left hand here. Then you put a release on your right hand, which gives you a trigger like you would have on a rifle. You attach that to the D-loop, which is basically the string. Well, first you will of course have to take an arrow here. You put an arrow on the arrow rest like this. And then, as I said before, you put the release on.
Yeah.
You draw the bow, and that's part of the training. It is to have a consistent hold the bow in a consistent way. So you have your right hand on your cheek. You look through the peep sight, and you look through the sight here. Yeah. And that's basically just like on a rifle. Yeah. Then you just hold the pin in the sight on the target and let go the shot.
Now I've been shooting a couple of times with a compound bow, and I know there are some of these pins in there.
Yeah,
they're fixed on a fixed distance, right?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the other main differences between shooting rifle and bow is that for most distances, when you're shooting with a rifle, you don't have to care very much about the distance to the game. Because I mean the bullet is not going to drop very much for normal hunting distances. That's not true for a bow. The arrow is very slow compared to a bullet, which means that you have to consider sort of the drop of the arrow. Yeah. So which brings us to I would say the traditional way of hunting the bow. First, you need to measure the distance to what you're shooting at. So that's typically in the range between, I would say 5 to maybe 30 meters. And then in the most popular sites, you have several pins, as you said, and each pin represents a distance. So you would maybe have, 10, 20, 30, and so on.
Okay.
So you measure the distance, and then you have to interpolate in between the pins. So say you have a 10 meter and a 20 meter, and you measure 15 meter, then you're basically holding the target in between the two pins.
Okay.
So that's the ordinary way of doing things.
So that'll make it a little bit more difficult to hit the target correctly if it's in between two pins.
Yeah, you get used to it, but that's kind of the process.
Okay.
Measure the distance, figure out which pin or which pins to use. That's the way you normally do it.
And there's a large drop the further you go out.
Yes.
The drop is really big.
Yeah. So one thing, there are actually several factors that can be a little bit surprising. First of all, like just the drop of the arrow. Also, because of everything is so slow. If you shoot from a tree stand, so you're shooting basically not horizontal but downwards. The distance you have to compensate for is only the horizontal component of the distance.
Okay.
Which is also something you need to consider. And I would add on that. Furthermore, if you're shooting on really close targets, like I've been shooting pheasants at 2 meters, then the distance between the arrow rest and the sight, this distance here, all of a sudden becomes very significant. Yeah. So if you're just basically aiming at the pin you would normally use, your arrow will hit way below the target. Okay. So it's another factor that you need to keep track of in an ordinary setting.
So how about wind from the side? How will that affect the arrow?
So I have not seen any solid science on it that I have read, but I did some tests a while back because I had the exact same question. So I was like, what is happening here? Yeah. So one day I was shooting at closer to 100 meters in strong wind from like 9 o'clock. And the first problem you realize is even before you let go of the arrow, is it's kind of difficult to hold the bow stable. Yeah. Like when it's windy, because it's a pretty big construction, right? My experience is that, and this could be different from other bows and arrows, but my hypothesis is that if you think of if the arrow flies this way, and we have wind from that direction, then the wind would offset the arrow to the right. Okay. But what I found was I was actually I did continue to hit the target, and my idea is that the wind, of course, affects the vanes of the arrow the most. Yeah. Which would actually create a correction against the wind. Yeah. So and this is just my answer, the short version is, it doesn't really affect the shot too much, but it's certainly gonna affect probably your ability to hold the bow steadily. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I would think, again, as you said, that it will affect the feathers, so it will turn into the wind. Yeah. But again, I don't know how much it would do that, because I can also see the feathers are quite small. Yeah. So, well, that's and if we follow that line of thought, of course, different sizes of vanes or feathers would act differently. Yeah, so don't take this answer as absolute science. No, okay. It's just my personal observation, and I had the exact same question. Okay, cool. So could you show me how to shoot the bow? Yeah. So I think we should start by shooting like the ordinary. Yeah. Situation. Yep. So I will turn on the zero sight here, and I'll just give you fixed pins. So you'll see in the sight in a second that you have five dots in here. There's dots for 15, 25, 35, 45 and 55 meters. Okay. And we have a target which is only like 10 meters out. So I would say you can just use the upper dot, which is sort of the 15 meter. So what you do is you hold the bow with your left hand, and I will have to give you a release. Maybe I'll do it like this. I'll have to put on the release. This is one of the differences between a traditional bow and a compound bow. On traditional bows, you can shoot them basically without a release. Yeah. That is just not possible on a compound bow. Okay. So there is like a trigger here? Exactly. So what you do is you keep your index finger on the back of the trigger. Yeah. Like sort of if you're shooting a rifle, you keep your finger away from the trigger until you're actually ready to shoot. So if you keep that on the back, I'll put an arrow here on the string and on the rest. Yeah. And then what you do is you put this in the D-loop. Yeah. And then you basically pull the bow, and you'll feel that at a full draw, it's going to be much lighter. It's called let off.
Yeah.
And then you aim at the target and just take the shot.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, now it's really easy to hold it. Wow.
Perfect.
That was right in the bullseye.
Yeah.
That's really easy to do that.
Yep.
Especially with the dot inside.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as I said before, shooting a compound bow is much like shooting a rifle. It's like you're aiming at the target. It's not like shooting a traditional bow.
No.
You have to. It's more like instinctive shooting.
Yeah.
This is like aim shooting.
Yeah.
So it's much like a rifle.
Yeah. Wow. So how does this work? The zero sight.
Yeah. So let me take this for a second and show you. So the big difference between a traditional sight, like we talked about, and the zero sight is that the zero sight has a built-in laser rangefinder.
Yeah.
So as we discussed before, the traditional way is that you have to, like in complete traditional setup, you take your laser rangefinder, measure the distance, put your laser rangefinder back. Maybe that's 20 meters, for example. Then you have to figure out which pin it is, and then you shoot with whatever you decide between the pins.
And you still hope the deer is out there.
Yeah, so exactly. It's a really good point. I'll get back to that in a second, because there's a lot of process in that.
Yeah.
There's a movement, and it takes time.
Yes.
With this sight, you don't have to. You can basically keep your eyes on the animal at all times.
Yeah.
You can draw the bow, and then there's a little trigger here on the handle.
Yeah.
What you do is you press the trigger and hold it. That will activate the laser rangefinder, and you will see a red dot in the sight. Only one red dot.
Okay.
You hold the red dot on the target, and you will see the distance in the display. But then basically, when the red dot is on the target, you release this little button, and you will get a green dot. And the green dot, there's only one, and that's exactly where the arrow will be at that particular distance.
Okay.
So no more fixed pins.
No.
Basically, press, hold the red dot on the target, release, shoot with the green one.
And so how if you're up in a shooting stand?
Yeah.
In the altitude?
Exactly. It's a really good question. It compensates, and of course I had to try it out, because I was kind of, does that really work?
Yeah.
It actually does.
Okay.
So it will compensate for, of course, the drop of the arrow.
Yeah.
It will compensate for shooting upwards or downwards. You can actually see the angle of the bow in the display. Not that you have to know it, but kind of gives you an indication.
That's also, I have a laser rangefinder. You can also see the angle.
Yeah, and that's exactly it.
Cool.
And also, which is kind of cool, if you're shooting super close range, like a pheasant walking by you, and you're dressed out as a plant.
Yeah.
It will also compensate for super close range shots.
Okay.
So now
what's the range on it?
Yeah, so, well, this is kind of funny, because the laser rangefinder can range, I can't remember, up to several hundred meters. But it's really not an issue.
No.
Because the real limitation here is, if you kind of look at the sight, you can imagine that the longer the shot, the lower the pin will need to be.
Yeah.
So the real limitation is the size of this house.
Yeah.
Because the dot can only go to the bottom.
Okay.
And for this bow, it's I believe, about 70 meters.
Okay.
So the laser rangefinder can range an animal further out with no problems, but it cannot give me a solution for the shot.
But would 70 meters be a realistic shooting distance to an animal?
No.
No.
No, I'll say, I'm Danish.
Yeah.
I would never do that.
No.
It's just, I mean, the bow can still kill at a distance. It's just, there's too much flight time. There's a risk, since the arrow is subsonic. There's a risk of the animal reacting to the shot before the arrows get there. Yeah. In Denmark, we say no more than 25 meters.
Okay.
Or what you're comfortable at most.
Yeah.
I will say though that, which is always what I teach in the classes, you should train longer distances.
Of course.
Because if you make a shot and it did not kill the animal, but you did hit it, you continue to kill as long as you can. So even if it's out at 50 meters, and you wounded it, you will continue to shoot all the best you can do.
That's the same with the rifle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So train at longer distances, not for the first shot, but maybe as a follow-up.
Okay. Yeah. So no matter what, if we keep ourselves into these safe distances at, let's say, 25 meters, there's no problems at all with the zero sight.
No.
Okay.
Absolutely. You can shoot from like 2 meters to It basically down to the bottom of the sight.
Yeah.
And a little note on that, depending on the bow. I mean, bows are different in terms of how many pounds you have to draw, and arrow weights and many other things, and efficiency of the cams, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. So you basically, the faster the bow, the longer the shot you can actually take with the Xero. You can imagine like a very slow bow, it's gonna drop up, basically drop out of the sight at a shorter distance. So that's the real limitation of how far you can shoot.
So how does it know the flight of the arrow? Is there some way you set it up first, or you can just go out and shoot with it?
Oh yeah. So what you do is there's a setup process you need to do, and the idea is not to try to like gauge the weight of the arrows or anything like that. It's basically asking. You're going through a process where you are shooting the bow, and you're basically learning the sight, the particular ballistics of your bow and your arrow. Yeah. Right. So there's a process where I can like explain it really brief. First, you shoot in mechanically at 15 meters. So there's a couple of rails here. So that would be like any other sight or any other weapon. Yeah. You're basically moving the sight to where the shot is at 15 meters. Then you adjust the laser rangefinder so it sort of points in the direction you expect it to do. And then you move back 25 meters, 35 meters, 45 meters, as long as you want to. And by doing that, it stores the particular ballistics of your bow and arrow. Yeah. And by having that, you can afterwards define fixed pins like I just showed you at any distances you want. So that's sort of the overall idea.
And can it store more than one arrow?
Yeah. So there are two versions of the sight. Yeah. There's the A1, which cannot. It can store one arrow profile. Okay. And then there's the A1i, which is this one. You can't really, I mean, they look exactly the same. It's basically electronics, that's the difference. The A1i can store up to 10 different profiles. Okay. And that has become really handy since we now just, as of this year, were allowed to hunt like bigger game in Denmark with the caveat that we have to shoot more heavy arrows. Okay. All of a sudden it became really relevant to have like different arrow weights. Of course,
because you don't know what you'll meet out there.
No, so I mean, if I go hunting and I know for sure I'm not gonna meet like a red deer, I would typically show like these ones my lightest arrows. Yeah. If there's a chance of a bigger game, I would of course put on my heavy arrows, and I'll just have to select the relevant arrow weight in the sight or arrow profile.
Is that the only difference between the two sights?
There's a couple of other differences. So I would say that is probably to me the most important one. Yeah. You have the ability in the more expensive one to choose the colors of the dots between red and green. Yeah. So in the cheap side, all dots are red. Yeah. So what I said before actually relies on us having the eye model. Yeah, so what I prefer, it's just how I prefer it. When I measure the distance, I like that to be red. When I shoot, that's like my solution. It's green. So, and I can also, as you saw before, on the fixed pins, I can select the color of each of those. Yeah. Then there's a couple of more features. One is what's called laser locate. So the idea is that when you shoot the arrow, you can get a waypoint on your Garmin device of where the game was standing at the time you shot. Like on the Phoenix.
Yeah. Like on the Phoenix?
Yes. So the way it works is that this guy, of course, knows the distance because that's what we used to shoot. Yeah. It also has a compass. So it knows like bearing. Yeah. And distance to the target. This guy communicates with the Phoenix watch, which has a GPS, so the watch knows your position. Yeah. Combined with heading and distance, you can calculate where the target was at the time, and the sight detects when you take the shot because there's an accelerometer. So it'll automatically, if you set it up to do so, use what's called laser locate. So as soon as you take the shot, it'll drop a waypoint on your watch, showing you where the animal was when you took the shot. And the last one is a bit in the nerdy department. The eye model can also measure vibration in the bow after you take the shot. So you can read out a number of milliseconds along with other metrics, but you can basically use the sight to trim your bow. Okay. If it's a little bit out of sync, that'll kind of come through in the vibration after you take the shot.
I know when I do a long range shooting with my rifle, if I can't my rifle, I will not hit the target. Mm-hmm. can this measure the canting also?
Yes.
In the bow?
Yeah, exactly. You can set up, again, it's configurable. You can set up like an alert in the display to give you an indication if the bow is not like vertical.
Yeah.
And you can set, I believe it's like 1, 3, and 5 degrees or so. So it'll basically give you an alert if you're not vertical.
Yeah.
And I will say from my own personal experience, as long as we're hunting on like flat ground, that's typically not an issue, because optically, when you look through the bows, you kind of, at least I tend to keep the bow at a 90-degree angle towards terrain.
Yeah.
But the problem is if I'm shooting in a mountain or something like that, I tend to tilt the bow towards the same way as the mountain.
Yeah, of course.
So then it becomes really relevant.
Yeah.
So you just get an alert saying, hey, you're not vertical.
Yeah. Is that audible or visual?
Oh, it's visual. You see it's placing a couple of dots in the opposite end of the sight compared to where your shot solution is. So you'll immediately see that, you are like not vertical.
So you're still totally silent?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So how about when you shoot the laser, is there any noise or is that also totally silent?
It's completely silent. I mean, it's this non-existent sound.
Oh, that's cool.
And I will say, that's probably, I would say, the most important, for me at least, as a bow hunter, the real difference in the real world, in a hunting situation. What I felt was I came from a situation where I was like, typically I go out in the forest, I sit down, and then I measure a couple of distances to a tree stop, a stone, and something else. So I kind of have an idea that this is typically at night.
Yeah.
So that is 30 meters, this is 10 meters, and so on.
Yeah.
But when the animal starts to approach me, which is typically what's happening, then at some point I have to make the decision to grab my laser rangefinder, pull it up like super slow range, put it back, grab my bow, put on the release, draw the bow. First of all, this creates movement. Even though I'm trying to do it slowly, it still creates movement. It takes time and it takes attention. So my eyes will be off the animal at certain times, like I'm looking for my laser rangefinder and so on. That has spooked, for me, more than one animal away. They kind of picked me up before I was ready to shoot. The difference with this one, which is really what I like about it, is I'm typically sitting, and if I'm sitting on my little chair, I have this on my leg, I have the release on, and I never watch the bow again. I have my eyes on the animal. When I see the animal, when I make the decision that it's kind of promising, at the right time, I pull my bow. Only then, when I actually see the animal in the sight, then I do the range and I get the solution. So it doesn't take my attention away to range. There's no risk of the animal moving between a range and a shoot, and it's just faster. It's less movement, less noise. It's faster. And so that's to me the game changer.
So if I want to start doing shooting with the bow, what would the main reason for me be to buy the Xero sight compared to just the normal sights? There has to be a difference in price. And how about weight and so on?
So weight-wise, it's absolutely comparable. Actually, my old sight I had before this one was actually heavier. Because I'm a bit of a shooting nerd, so I had I could adjust with a little reel on it and so on. So and it was all made in steel, so it was actually heavier.
Okay.
This one is in the, I would say, relative expensive end, but I will say that you have to consider that it basically replaces both a laser rangefinder and a proper sight. So I'm not saying it is not more expensive than a traditional solution. It would typically be a bit more expensive. But you'll have to add to that, at least that would be my main argument, as I just said. Your chances on actual hunting is increased because you're getting so incredibly close to the animals. So anything you can take away in terms of movement or sound or have to spend time increases your chances of successful hunting.
Okay. So you could say that the biggest con is the price compared, but of course you save money on, you don't need to buy the laser rangefinder. And the pro is, of course, that you can always have your eyes on the animal, and you don't waste any time of putting away or taking out your laser rangefinder. Any more pros? And of course, I know with the sticks or with the pins, because they're fixed. With this one, the dot will just move to the correct position. Yeah. So there is no thinking about, is it about 12.5 meters or anything? It's just like...
Yeah. So I would say that in general terms, it reduces a lot of risk or potential mistakes you could make, both in terms of like the physical stuff, like, spooking away the animal, making noise or making movement, but also in the situation, I mean, you're a hunter, so you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. You get pretty excited.
Yeah, of course.
So that's
start shaking.
Yeah, so you can get pretty excited. So, and you just make mistakes. Yeah. Especially when you're like excited, then maybe you took the wrong pin or something like that. Yeah. Those things cannot happen. No. So I would say in general terms, it takes away a lot of distractions and potential mistakes. It's just easier. You aren't concerned about keeping your eyes on the animal, and it's really hard to do it wrong. Yeah. You'll get an alert for a tilted bow. Yeah. You'll get only the correct pin. It's just easier, and I would say safer. It's a safer kill. Yeah. Yeah. The risk of wounding the animal is smaller. Okay. Yeah, and of course that's one of the things that we have to be aware of the whole time. Yes. Not to wound the animal, but to make a safe kill. Yes. At a good distance. Yeah. And of course it will also give you, like, if you think it's in the 25 meters, it will of course tell you that now it's 27 meters. Yeah. So you can decide, okay, I'll just have to wait a little bit more. So instead of doing it with the eyeball Mark 1. Yeah. I had, on that note, I had a situation for practical hunting this last autumn, where we were allowed to shoot doe and red deer. So I was sitting. I've never been there before. So I was in a relatively high tree stand. Yeah. And I got there at night, and I saw this doe came by, and it was like it's a bigger animal than I'm used to shoot. I was not used to the terrain, and I was up high. So I was like, maybe that's good. Yeah. So I pulled the bow, measured the distance, and saw 36 meters. Yeah. It was just okay. Have a nice day. Yeah, I'm not going to kill you today. No. But, it was just easy for me to kind of last minute, okay. Yeah. I was ready. Had it been 25 meters, I would have taken the shot. Yeah. But I had no panic, so to speak, before then. I was ready, and then I made the decision, okay, you can go. Yeah, and there's no doubt. No doubt at all. I know the exact distance. Yeah. So that was a practical use of the range. That's great. Yeah. That's great to hear. Afterwards, when we're done here, I really want to try out the bow again, and also maybe pair it with my watch. Yeah. That'll be really cool. So I just got a last question. How does the Xero operate in a harsh environment, like low temperatures, rain and so on? Yeah, I had the same concern when I received it the first time. Yeah. It was actually a pre-production model, but anyways, I couldn't help myself. I needed to figure it out. So I took the bow and I went out. This was like Danish winter, so typically raining. Yeah. And I went out and I held the bow like this, and I made sure that I got plenty of rain down in the sight. Yeah. And when I was like, I could see water down there, but it's not going to pass the glass. I tried to take a shot, so I lift the bow up, and what I experienced was that the water just falls off the sort of the head-up display, and I could shoot without a problem. The other thing, which I've not been able to test because of our temperatures in Denmark, is how does it work in the cold. So I can only relay the information I got from my US colleagues because they had kind of the same concern. So they brought it out to something like minus 20 degrees centigrade, and it works perfectly. Yeah. I will say though that it's really key that you remember to put in lithium batteries. It's AA batteries, that's a form factor. Okay. So you can fit in alkaline batteries, but it's not going to work when it's cold because alkaline doesn't like cold. No. And also the lifetime of the battery is shorter. Okay. So make sure to spend the last little bit of money on getting the correct batteries. So how long a time is the lifespan of the batteries? I think the manual states about a year. Okay. It's like thousands and thousands of measurements. So I would say if you swap them once a year, you should be fine. Cool. Wow. Great. That was a little bit about bow hunting and especially the Garmin Xero sight. I'd really like to thank you, Claus. It's nice meeting you. Thanks for having me. And also great that you can share all your experiences regarding the site and also bow hunting. And this is something that I want to pursue in the future, bow hunting. I think it's maybe the ultimate type of hunting, so you can get really close to the animal.
especially using some of the gadgets. I really look forward to try that. So that was all that I had this time about the bow hunting and the Garmin Xero site. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.